All right. So I'm MaryEllen Stives, the lovely puppy in the picture. I wish I was that cute. I don't have a camera on my little laptop that I brought home from work, so I apologize. But hopefully we can get the information shared. And if anyone has any questions, you can either raise your hand or you might want to jot it down and wait until the end of the presentation. And then we can answer all the questions, or it might get answered during the presentation. But basically, tonight we're going to talk about the ABLE Act, which stands for Achieving a Better Life Experience. So this is how to save money and keep your benefits. Many of you probably know that that's a huge fear for people to become employed, that they're going to earn so much money that they'll lose their benefits. Thanks to this ABLE Act, this is one way to protect your benefits like SSI and Medi-Cal and still save money. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight. Finally, because other states have had ABLE Acts for several years, California was a little slow coming to the table. December of 2018, I believe, is when they finally opened it. So better late than never. And I will say, whoops, I cannot, let's see here, what's going on? Does someone else have control? Oh, there we go. Okay, so prior to having an ABLE Act, people could only save $2,000. That was it. If you saved more than $2,000, you were running the risk of losing your SSI. Or the other option would be to set up a special needs trust. Problem with the special needs trust is that they're expensive, and the person who the money's being saved for has no control over a special needs trust. So with the CalABLE Act, you can have an ABLE account and a special needs trust, but unless you plan on saving a lot of money, you may not need a special needs trust. And we'll talk about why that would be. Okay, there we go. Whew. So the ABLE Act changes all that. It's a tax-advantaged savings account. And by tax-advantaged, what I mean is the money, obviously, you've already paid tax on money you put into it. When you take money out, you pay no more taxes. And depending on how much you save, if you're the person earning the money and putting it into the ABLE account that you own, you can qualify for a tax credit up to $2,000, which is very nice. So it allows people with disabilities who work, or people with disabilities who have family that might want to set up an account for them to save money. There used to be, or there still is, a 529 account for college expenses that many families set up for their child when they're born or later on. And grandparents might want to make contributions to it, or friends and family. And in the past, if they contributed to the account of someone on SSI, they ran the risk of having that money counted against them. That no longer is the case if they deposit the money into an ABLE account. So it really is, it's a great thing to have. It's a huge improvement, to say the least. So there are some qualifiers. You have to have had the disability occur before the age of 26. So it's preferable to open the account while you're 26 or younger. But if you know of someone who's older than 26, as long as they can prove their disability began prior to the age of 26, they can open up an ABLE account. You're automatically eligible if you receive SSDI or SSI. And there's another path if you have a marked and severe functionality, which means a condition, a serious condition that is expected to last 1 year or more. But for that disability, you have to have a doctor's note. You have to explain why all of a sudden you have a marked and severe disability. So those are pretty much it for the eligibility criteria, which is great. So only one account per beneficiary, the beneficiary being the person who owns the account, and the CalABLE board administers. The CalABLE board is through the Department of the Treasury, the state of California. So you don't have to go through CalABLE. If you want an ABLE account in another state, you can certainly do that. But just like with CalABLE, you can only have one account per person. So the state of California has made it very attractive in many ways for people to keep their money within our state. The fees, which we'll talk about a little later, are very low. And it only takes, I think, $25 to open an account. So you don't have to have huge amounts of money to open an account. And again, the account is owned by the beneficiary. So it's really nice to give people with disabilities control of their money. So the maximum annual contribution is $15,000. So when I say contribution, you're putting it into an account that you get to select. Do you want a really safe account with minimal risk? Would you like a more moderate growth account? It's just like many of you probably have individual retirement accounts. Same theories apply. So the people controlling the account decide how they want that money to be administered. And you can change that twice a year. So say last year, the stock market was doing great. So you wanted to be a little more aggressive and have a maximum growth account. Now all of a sudden it's not doing so great. You can change it. You can go into something more secure. You can do that twice a year. So the earnings from, the growth that's going to hopefully experience are tax-free. And when you take the money out, as I mentioned again, you don't have to pay taxes on it when you take it out to pay for expenses. So it says the maximum you can save may increase over time. It's currently $529,000. Now, if someone has that amount of money in their account, they will not be receiving their SSI. After $100,000, the SSI checks stop. Once you go below the 100,000, SSI kicks in again. So your eligibility is never in jeopardy. You're always eligible. But if you're saving a lot of money, you might want to consider, instead of going over 100,000, if you're able to save that much money, maybe you do want to put it in a special needs trust. But anyone can make contributions. So if you are fortunate enough to have grandparents or an inheritance, it's a wonderful opportunity to put money in an account. So when I say the maximum every year is $15,000, for the individual, for an adult who is a person with a disability that's employed, they can contribute an additional, and this amount is incorrect. It says $12,140. It's actually $12,760 now. It's whatever the max for the federal poverty level is. But if they contribute that out of their earnings, they're free to do that. So you can see that the 15,000 has now turned into a considerable amount greater than 15,000. And now this can only be the beneficiary making this additional contribution. And if they're, say they work at, I don't know, Cox Communications, and Cox Communications has a retirement system for them, and they're, going to benefit from that. In that case, they cannot contribute that extra amount of money. So there's some little glitches to it, but it is a nice way to protect your money. You can roll over funds. If you, say, for example, had a 529 college savings account set up for your family member, and now you think, well, maybe they're not going to go to college, you can now roll that over into an ABLE account, and it becomes a 529A account. You can do that if you had an account for another sibling. And if it was from a 529A account for another sibling, that won't count towards the annual cap. So I don't know why you would take money from one sibling and give it to another, but you never know, things happen. So you can roll over money, which is, they've made this, I think, as flexible as they can to really encourage people not only to save, but to to acknowledge the cost of living in California. It's very high, and people that make, minimum wage can barely get by. And if you're a person with a disability who can't work full-time at minimum wage, and you've got to pay rent and expenses, you have a really tough time. So this will hopefully help with that situation. So if for some reason the person is fortunate enough to be getting more money put into their account than they can legally allow, they will return the money. The last amount of money put in would be the money first taken out and returned to whoever made that contribution. The beneficiary would be notified. So say James had an account and it had exceeded the, $529,000? And his grandmother put in another $5,000. A trigger would go off and they would say, no, that's more than we can allow. They would return that money to the grandmother and they would notify James, oh, by the way, your grandmother tried to put in more money, but we couldn't accept it. So you cannot go over that limit. So there is a tax credit for low to moderate income beneficiaries. And that's what I talked about a little bit earlier. That's if the individual is putting money in from their earnings. It's called a saver credit. Now, they don't qualify for that if they're a dependent on someone else's tax return, if they're not a full-time student, and they can't, if they contribute to their ABLE account when they owe taxes. So they can get a tax credit. The maximum of that is $2,000, but there are qualifiers on that too. So you can't be a full-time student. You cannot be a dependent on someone else's tax. And you have to contribute to your own ABLE account and owe taxes. So obviously they're not going to give you a tax credit if you don't owe any taxes. So let's see here. So, using your money. This is the best part. As I mentioned before, it has to be a qualified disability expense. And they've been very generous. They've really made it permissive. As long as it's contributing to someone's health, their independence, or their quality of life. So basically, this money that's in your ABLE account, there's several ways you can obtain that money. You can have a check cut if you choose to go that route. What I love personally is now they have a Visa card, like a gift card, that you can't have more than $9,999 on. But any amount up to that, you can have that reloaded every month if you want. So you have this Visa, basically a gift card, if you will. You can't purchase more than $2,500 worth of anything in one day. And it does cost $1.25 a month to have the Visa card. But it's real easy access for someone to purchase their groceries or do whatever. So your qualified disability expense, it says, has to be related to your disability. And again, it's for health, quality of life, or independence. So they do permit basic living expenses. Rent. It doesn't have to be medically tied. There's no medical necessity. So you can pay your rent. You can buy books if you're going to school. You can use it for transportation. If you need more supports for your job, you can purchase those. Basically, you want to keep receipts with a brief explanation. And again, if you have this Visa card, you'll get a statement. So, you want to be careful not to use it to go gambling, let's say. That's not really going to contribute to your health. Might help your mental health, but that's not approved. Can't buy alcohol with it. So those are kind of just real basic things. I've got a better list of what you can use it for. If I can get this to move forward. For education, for housing, transportation. Many folks that we work with can't secure a job because they are unable to get there. on weekends, let's say. Transportation, I'm not sure how it is in Imperial, but in San Diego, the bus lines are very inconsistent on weekends and forget about it on Sunday. So you might have to use some of that money to get an Uber or a Lyft or whatever. Again, employment supports. It might be you need special shoes or uniforms. You might need a job coach beyond what Department of Rehab or the regional center will allow. Assistive technology is huge, as we're discovering ourselves tonight. But for many people on the job, if they have an iPad, they can follow steps for whatever job they're supposed to be doing. So they can purchase that. They can, oh yeah, financial management, legal assistance, funeral, burial, basic living expenses. They can pay their gas and electric bill. They can pay their phone bill. It's really very broad what they can. The limits of what you can't do are few and far between. And again, it's very permissive more than restrictive. They tried to give people leeway to live a life, a quality life. So again, if you did use your money for gambling, it's considered a non-qualified distribution. And when I say it's expensive, it can be very expensive. What happens if someone were to audit an account and say, hey, I don't think Viejas probably is where you're living. So you're going to have to pay income taxes on that money. There'll be an additional federal tax and another 2.5% California state tax is charged. It can also be counted against you for the purposes of eligibility for your benefits like SSI. So people do need to be careful. And when I said before that the person, the recipient, owns the account, they do. But certainly there are many family members who have also set these accounts up and will be helping people to make sure that they don't run into trouble. So, you know, the temptation is always there when anyone has a lot of resources. So you want to really impress upon your son or daughter, if you do set up one of these accounts or help them set one up, that they could run into some trouble if they go outside of the guidelines, let's say. Now, they can take their own money and go to Viejas and have a nice evening. There's no law against that. They just can't take the money out of the ABLE account. So again, we go back to the money is invested. Once you open an account, you get to make the decision. Do you want high risk or low risk? Low risk is pretty reliable. You can ask for help if you need to understand your investment options. And I'm sure there's all kinds of tools online. The California Department of Treasury, I believe, the Secretary of State, just Google CalABLE and you'll come up. They have so many resources on the websites. The State Treasurer's Office. I don't know that they give advice, financial advice, but I think they give you indications of what's high risk and what's low risk. And they have different fees. The basic fee just for this account in general is $37 a year. That comes out in monthly amounts, which is pretty low. If you want a conservative growth plan or a moderate growth, it's another $37 a year. The investment fees are anywhere from $2.70 to $3. And a state administrative fee is charged for the amount of $13.20. So the maximum annual fees on these accounts is $53.20. So it's a pretty reasonable fee considering they're protecting your money, hopefully. And let's see. So the investment options, as I mentioned before, you can change up to 2 times a year. Different rules in each state. So I mentioned before that California was kind of late to the party to have an ABLE account. There were people that wanted to get something established and they didn't want to wait around. So I know on the California website, you can compare up to 3 different states' plans at a time, because every state has different rules. So one of the popular ones, I know a few people who opened up what they call a stable account. It was the state of Ohio's account. But you want to ask questions if you do go to a different state. You want to find out what their rules are, because every state is different, all the fees are different. I'm pretty sure what you can spend money on is pretty consistent though. But whoever is managing the account does make a report to Social Security every month indicating how much money is in the account. So they take care of that. It's not another thing that you have to do, like reporting wages. So again, Social Security, you can, for an ABLE account, save up to $100,000 and there'll be no reduction to your benefits. After $100,000 goes into the account, you will no longer get an SSI check, but you are still eligible. So that's huge, because in the past, if people lost their benefits, it was very difficult to get back on, because they usually lost them because they were employed and earned enough money. And then they said, well, you clearly have demonstrated you can work and provide for yourself. So this is a different being altogether. So it really gives people some breathing room, which is nice. So your SSI benefits can be impacted when ABLE funds are used for housing expense. That happens if you don't pay the housing expense the same month the money is withdrawn. So if you have rent due in May, take the money out in May and pay the rent. Don't take the money out at the end of April and then pay May's rent. So you have to kind of be careful about that. That's just one little tricky thing. There's no impact on eligibility for your Medicaid, which is huge. So even if you go over the 100,000, you still get your Medicaid. So it does belong to the beneficiary, but of course, parents of a minor child would be in charge. Legal guardian of an adult would also be in charge, or someone with power of attorney. So, I mean, primarily this account is for the individual that it's set up for. Who manages it can be either that individual, the legal guardian, or the adult who's not conserved could actually sign away power of attorney to let someone else manage this account if they chose. So the trust is owned and controlled by the trustee. Very narrow rules. It does cost money to set it up, but as I mentioned, it's $37 a year. And then depending on what plan you pick, it could go up as high as $53.20. Oh, the trust. The trust is, I apologize, I was talking about the ABLE account. The trust is much more tricky to set up. Costs are much higher. As you know, you usually get a financial planner or an attorney involved, whereas an ABLE account, it's $37. And it's very broad. With a special needs trust, I'm not sure if anyone on the call has a special needs trust, but the guidelines for expenditures that go out of it are a little more restrictive. They're a lot more restrictive. And you can't use it like a debit card. And that's basically with the ABLE Act, you have what's pretty much everyone has, a debit card to pay those expenses. So the money can go in and out. It's a lot more fluid, which is really nice. So say Joe gets an $18,000 inheritance. He doesn't work. What happens next? Well, I used to work with adults with disabilities that lived independently. And one woman I worked with had been bitten by a dog. She won a lawsuit. So all of a sudden she had a huge amount of money and she didn't know what to do with it. So she had to set up a special needs trust. This was a long time ago and there was no such thing as an ABLE Act, which is unfortunate, but she could not just put it in a savings account. So She either had to spend it down or she had to put it in a special needs trust. Lucky Joe here, if he gets an $18,000 inheritance, he can immediately set up an ABLE account. For the first year, he can deposit $15,000 of that. He's allowed to save $2,000 in a regular bank account. He could put $2,000 in and just spend down $1,000, or he could spend down $3,000 if he chose to. But either way, that money is going to be protected and be more easily tapped into for him. You know, $15,000 can go a long way, but it's really heartbreaking when you see people, sometimes people will apply for Social Security benefits, and for whatever reason, it can take a long time to get approved. Once they're approved, they're given their benefits from the date of application. So it can be a huge amount of money. And in the past, people are told like, oh, you have to spend it down. You have to go buy a burial plot, or, you know, I mean, there were very few things people could purchase with that money, but they had to spend it down, which sometimes really was a waste of money. So now Joe could set up a special or an ABLE account, which would be great. Great for Joe. Then there's Sarah. She works and gets benefits. Her grandparents are very generous and they want to give her $300 a month. She's a frugal person and she hates having to spend all of her earnings. So what could she do? Well, she could put her earnings into her ABLE account, and her earnings could be up to $12,760. She could use that for day-to-day expenses, or she could save on top of the $300 a month her grandparents are putting in for some big ticket item, an accessible van, for example. You know, there are people that are prevented from purchasing, you know, in the past, a car because they could never save up enough money. You don't get much of a car for $2,000, unfortunately. So this gal is really in luck. So she can save away like a, you know, maniac, and she can use her debit card to pay her expenses. And, you know, she'll be in good condition, good shape there when she wants to buy her accessible van, hopefully. And her grandparents in the past couldn't have purchased it for her because that would have counted against her benefits. So CalABLE, again, was launched in December 2018. So to establish an account, you go to calable.org. It is managed by the state's treasurer, along with the board and executive director. Now it's up to 40 states that have active ABLE accounts. So I know in Florida, they are only open to residents of the state of Florida. So if you want to do some comparison shopping, don't pick Florida as one of your states. You should look, you know, I mean, if you want to. And again, if you go to that website that we were at a moment ago, the calable.org, it'll give you a map and you can click on 3 states and just do some comparison shopping if you want. So again, remember though, you can only have one account. So you can't have one in California and one in Ohio. So you do want to make sure that they accept out-of-state individuals. And you want to be sure to ask the questions. Some have minimum amounts that you have to deposit. I think ours, you know, if you need to open up an account and you have $25, you can do that. Some states are not that easy. What are the fees? I think our fees are very low, but I haven't really compared that many accounts. Are there limits on, you know, withdrawals? And again, there are some hidden fees, like I mentioned earlier. If you wanted to have a paper statement mailed to you, you'd have to pay $10 a year, which that isn't too awful either. If you want a check issued, it would be $5 a check. That could add up. So that's why that debit card for $1.50 a month is really such a nice option to have. Now, some people, you know, aren't going to spend money out of their ABLE account except for big items. So maybe, you know, they wouldn't want to pay $1.50 a month for a debit card they wouldn't use. but they would want to check to buy that accessible van. So you just want to make sure, oh, and you want to make sure that you can choose how it's invested. I mentioned earlier, you can have a very safe account, or you can have a more moderately aggressive account. You want to make sure when you're looking into other states, in fact, I think I have a slide here. Yeah, just to ask these questions. And do you have online access? That's a nice thing with our accounts too. People can go in and just look online. Oh, and I should say another thing about, and part of the reason why California was late in getting their ABLE account started, in some states, if the person dies, the money in the ABLE account was going to be used to pay back Medi-Cal. That's not the case here in California. So I think there are some qualifiers that Medi-Cal might attempt to get the money back if the person, if their estate goes into probate, and if they're not survived by a spouse or children under 18 or a child of any age. I think, and I say that loosely because I think these are ever evolving. So if you're going to open up an account, I would check into that. But I do know that it's not a routine occurrence where Medi-Cal just swoops in and takes all the money out of the ABLE account, because that would be really sad, especially if the individual has a family or a sibling or whatever that they want the money to go to. So that was a nice component of our ABLE Act. So here's a lot of other resources. There's so much information that you can explore. But, you know, my sentiment is any savings is better than no savings. And again, for health, independence, and quality of life, I think, you know, that says a lot. We want people with disabilities to have the opportunity to work, most importantly. And that was a barrier. That was a real drawback. People were afraid they would lose their benefits. And from witnessing people try to get their benefits back, it was a real concern. So now if you can protect that money and not lose benefits, it's just awesome. So let's see, what else am I forgetting? I think that's kind of it in a nutshell. What kinds of questions do you guys have?
Really quick, before we go any further, MaryEllen, you were talking about the 529 plan.
Yes.
So the 529 plan is a college savings. So yes, if the child is intended for, chooses not to go to college, then you can roll over those funds into your CalABLE account. So I don't know if you clarified it, or as to why somebody would want to do that. Well, if the attended beneficiary didn't use the funds, then it would just sit there, and so that's why that money could be moved over as an option.
Yes. Yeah, or someone might go for a year and say, you know what, this isn't for me. Mm-hmm. You know, and that money would sit there, and then you get a penalty, I believe. So now you can roll it into the 529A, and that applies to, you know, the individual with a disability, or if you had one set up for another sibling without a disability and they choose not to go to college, you can roll that money into your child with a disabilities account.
Yeah, exactly. There are a few questions, so I don't know if you have access to the question, and
I'll ask MaryEllen, James.
Okay, no problem.
All right.
So first of all, people are asking if we're going to share the recording. Yes, we'll do it once, as soon as the video is processed and we're able to prepare it to share. They're also asking for the content, MaryEllen, so if you can just resend us the email with the presentation, we'll make a PDF file for attendees.
Oh, I'll be happy to do that, and I have a whole booklet also that perfect. I have in both English and Spanish.
Okay, so if you can send us that information, we'll we'll prepare an email for attendees and all of our community members.
Oh, great. I will be happy to do that.
There's also another question from one of our attendees, Darlene. She was asking if there's a way to switch from a trust to an ABLE account.
Well, I would assume you could take some of that money. Well, I don't want to make assumptions. Let me look and see if there's any direction in this booklet. I'm thinking it's your money. I mean, if you want to set up an ABLE account now that it's an option, ABLE versus trust, I don't know I don't think there would be any penalty for that, but I would talk to whoever you would set up the special needs trust with. Yeah, because it really does give you a lot more control over your money.
Yes, it does.
It says, even if you have a trust account, it's worthwhile to considering opening an ABLE account for the flexibility and control. So it doesn't really answer the question of, can you take money from one to put in the other? So I would ask whoever had set up the account.
Yeah. I think that would definitely depend on how the special needs trust is set up.
Yeah.
But you know, as long as it's following the procedures to withdraw any, if it's within the trust, the trust manager to, and if it's considered as an option.
Yeah. I'm looking here. Yeah, it doesn't really address that. I mean, it does say, I mean, it's great to have both if you can.
Yeah.
But I would talk to whoever had established the trust. For sure.
Okay, we have another question from Rosalia. Where do we go to set up an ABLE account? Our local bank, or where do we go?
Nope, you go to calable.org and you can do it all online, or they can send you the packet of information and forms if you'd rather do it with paper. They send out a nice little packet. It's very easy to do, and it's also FDIC insured for anyone who's interested in that. So basically, there's no paper forms. You just go to calable.ca.gov and you can set it up right there. And they will send you out a packet of information, I'm sure. They send out a program disclosure statement and participation agreement. So you can set up recurring deposits to one of those accounts if you wanted to. I mean, there's all different options once you have the account. So, and remember, the minimum contribution is $25. So if you have that, that's all you need.
Yeah, no, I can talk from experience. It took about, if you have the information available, it takes less than, 15 to 30 minutes to do it.
That's amazing.
You need social security numbers, you need to provide several information. But yeah, it's pretty easy to set up. And yeah, it's pretty convenient to have the debit card. We haven't used it in reality, but you can set up one-time deposits to the CalABLE account, or recurring deposits from your from any bank account. But it's definitely a great option. And instead of spending your money, it's better to just save it tax deferred.
Yes, because it just really benefits the individual. you know, dental work, let's face it. I mean, nobody can afford that. And it's awful when somebody has a terrible dental issue. I mean, you can pay for that out of this account. You know, there's unforeseen expenses that can come up, aside from all the ones we can think of right off the top of our heads.
And people need to
So,
be aware that any expense that's disability related. So
and it doesn't have to be medical.
yeah. So there's another question from Darlene. Do they incur interest? So I'll assume that the question is if it produces interest.
Right, you don't
Ability
pay
to say
tax on it. Right, I mean, the whole idea is hopefully that it will grow.
that it grows. Yeah.
Yes. So no, you don't have to pay tax on the growth.
Yeah. Okay, there's if there are offices for CalABLE.
No, not that I'm aware of. I mean, there's the, you know, state treasurer. That's pretty much where Dante Allen is the gentleman right now who's in charge of it. That's where he's housed. He's great. He came to San Diego and did a presentation. He was at our Jobtoberfest event last year and did a presentation. If you ever wanted him to come, he probably would if he was down in this, area, because they really, you know, are trying to, promote this opportunity. And, you know, people for so long, it was kind of like self-determination. Well, maybe it'll be this year, maybe it'll be next year, maybe it'll be the year after. It took so long to get off the ground. I think some people lost interest, but, you know, better late than never. And like I said, you know, they really did work through that whole Medi-Cal issue because that was a sticking point.
Yes.
People were worried, and understandably so.
Okay, let's see if we have any.
Oh, and if somebody had a modification for a home they needed to make, you can use the money for that. Sorry, there's another question?
Let me see. No, about the offices, I think that in terms of going to an office or asking questions to someone, the most I've seen are obviously the webinars like we're doing right now. I've seen, you know, some organizations. I've seen some organizations like set up workshops to help people, you know, walk them through the website, literally. And but I don't know of any effort similar to Cover California of having agencies or having people assist you in doing it. So do you know if there's any kind of organization doing that?
I'm pretty sure on the website, they will guide you through it. I think you just need to go to calable.org. And Dante Allen, I don't think he has much of a staff, but there is a board, and he's really helpful. And again, like you said, there's very little involved to open the account. You know, it's basically if you can open up a checking account or a savings account, it's very similar to that, except for you have to pick, you know, what are your financial goals? Do you want a safe level of investment, or would you like it to be a little more aggressive? But those are decisions, you know, you have to kind of consider at the time, but I don't think anybody would feel comfortable. I certainly wouldn't, making a recommendation on what kind of an account someone should open. But I would call Dante and just ask. I think that's, he's the best resource.
Yes.
And again, it's very easy.
There's another question. Asking if TIA CREF tuition financing is part of CalABLE. I do see that TIA is their logo is on the debit cards, but do you have any idea of what's their involvement with the program?
Let's see. Let me look in their book here. TIAA CREF, tuition financing. They are listed as the program manager. Yes,
Okay.
on the program disclosure statement. So what level of involvement they have on individual accounts, I have no idea. but they are the manager, the program manager of it.
Yeah, and I imagine that they were chosen basically because of the similarity with the 529 program, and since they're already familiar with that, right?
That would be my guess, yes. Yes, indeed. I think, you know, a lot of time and energy went into creating this. So I think they wanted to get input from experienced individuals. I'm looking here to see if there's anything more in the book.
Yeah, there's another question. If you're available for questions outside of the meeting, how can people reach you?
Oh, just put my email in when I send you the information.
Okay,
Oh,
I'll definitely do it. I'll
yeah,
definitely, we'll
please
definitely
do.
share your contact information when we send the material.
Yes, anytime for anything.
There's another question. During the application process, when you're on the website, what information is required to prove disability to qualify for the program?
It's self-disclosure. Well, and if you receive SSI or SSDI, that's automatic. So unless you're in that other category, there's no doctor's note or anything required.
In my experience, I think that when I applied, I don't exactly remember, but I think they requested information from the autism diagnosis for my son. So I basically filled out on the form like diagnosed by regional center, the name of the psychologist, the date, and I think we even uploaded the diagnosis. Or so I think there's a pretty wide range of ways you can provide proof if they ask for, but they request information from a doctor, a psychologist, or someone that is
Well, but if you
certified to diagnose.
have SSI, you don't need to do anything more.
Yeah.
Or SSDI. Basically, you have to have a condition listed on the Social Security Administration's list of compassionate, allowable, or allowances conditions, or be able to provide self-certification of your disability and diagnosis. So basically, yes, that would be if you had a written signed diagnosis from a licensed physician. And let's see, there's an SSA disability blue book. You can find the condition in there. It says if you're self-certifying, you may need to provide your doctor's name and address.
Yeah.
Although you will not need to produce a copy of your diagnosis in order to open an account. You just have to have the record of diagnosis readily available in case of an audit by the SSA or Internal Revenue. So I think regional center or a psychologist or a doctor, I mean, would certainly qualify.
Okay. Yeah, and in this case, we provided information that that we pulled from San Diego Regional Center's diagnosis.
Yes. Well, you're lucky because San Diego Regional Center is not always the easiest to get an autism diagnosis from.
But yeah,
I'm sure that qualifies.
Yes. I imagine that for many families, if they're already on any other California or state program related to a disability, just providing when you provide the social security number during the application process, that should be enough.
Yeah, well, especially if they're with the regional center.
Yes.
Because that indicates a lifelong condition.
Yes. Okay, let me see if there's another question. I don't see any additional questions.
Well, I will resend you the information. So please send out the little booklets to everyone.
Yes, so the presentation, the booklets,
Yep.
and your contact information, we'll definitely share it. And I don't know if any anyone else from the panel wants to unmute and ask a question or comment?
Yeah, really quick, MaryEllen, is there any, since we do have a little bit of time, I don't know how much more time you have for us, is there any other information right now that you could or would like to share in regards to recent events and everything that's going on?
Oh, well, I send out emails quite regularly.
Yeah, I get them, and yes, I try to forward them to the members as best I could, but
Yes.
I know as members there's a lot of them dealing with distance learning, home ed school, and it's not necessarily easy to read through all the emails that are coming through.
Oh, I know.
Not just for myself. Maybe they're already getting your emails, so they're getting it twice. But just touch on just a handful of things that maybe parents would be interested in, if you don't mind and if you have the time.
Well, now, I don't know, do people know that Disability Rights provided a workshop on conservatorships and alternatives last week? There's going to be another one of those. That one last week was done in Spanish. This week, Thursday or tomorrow night at 6:30, it will be done in English. If there's any interest in that, I can send you the link for that.
Okay.
We're also having the special ed specialist from Disability Rights do a training next Wednesday. Now we do them, I'm not sure if that's the English or the Spanish.
You sound
But-
muffled there, MaryEllen.
Pardon me?
You were muffled there. We couldn't
Oh,
quite
I'm
hear
sorry. Yeah, I'm not sure which is the Spanish and which is the English, but I will send them to you because I'm sure the special ed will be of great interest to families.
you. Yes.
So
And
I'll-
those I'm trying to share as best as I can when
Okay.
I can to be quite fair and honest with everybody. I have to work my regular job all day long, and as well as try to disseminate everything that comes in from MaryEllen and from San Diego Regional Center and from
What-
all the other sources that I get emails from, and forward those over to
You know what?
everybody.
I maintain an Imperial Valley list.
Mhm.
So if anyone wants to get on that list and get the info directly, just send me an email. And I'll be more than happy to add you.
To Friends of MaryEllen.
Friends of Mary. To MaryEllen.Stives@scdd.ca.gov.
And if you want to make it easier, if any of you received a forward email from me that I received from MaryEllen, you could just copy the email from there. Most of you should have, if you received any of the emails from me in recent weeks, you should have received at least 1 or 2 or 100 emails from MaryEllen.
And I will, when I send this information, if you send it on to people, my email will be right there too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
just shoot me a quick email and say, please add me. Because we are really trying to get, especially with this special ed issue, information out. And initially we were sending a lot of ideas and information on resources, but I get it. I mean, everybody's home trying to do their own job. Now they're trying to do the job of teacher and make time for webinars or going on National Geographic websites to entertain their children. It's tough.
Yes,
No,
it is.
it is very tough, and you know, we're trying our best to get more information out there.
Yes.
I don't recall seeing that email in regards to conservatorships in Spanish, to be quite honest. I did see, and I was looking through it right now, I did see the one that was here in English. So if you wouldn't mind, maybe I did forward it, but if you wouldn't mind sending me the link again, so that way parents can review that one in Spanish, because I'm sure the video is still available.
Yes, I'm sure it is. And have you gotten any of my emails about the autism of inland?
No, I
We've
don't
done a
recall.
lot of Zoom meetings, and
No, I
I'll
don't
send
recall.
you that too. The Beth group.
Autism Society, Inland Empire.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last email I got regarding that, it was back in April 6th.
Oh, okay. Maybe that was the taped version of one of their trainings. They had a couple of really good ones. I'll go through the things I sent and resend them.
I believe I had shared that one, if I recall correctly. So.
Yeah, it's strange times, that's for sure.
But I've never received so many emails from you ever in
My
such a short
apologies.
span of time. No, don't apologize. Like I said, I'm trying my best, and we're trying our best to get all this information forwarded to everybody out there. And like I said, if you have received an email from MaryEllen that I forwarded, you can just simply copy and paste and send her to add her directly to you to if you need to get more direct information or
Yeah, I did
anything.
send out something today on scams because
Yeah, I just forwarded that a little while ago.
Oh, great. Yeah, because people are calling saying they're the service coordinator and they need your bank account information or social security. So, yep, awful times for people to be preying on individuals, but oh, anyway, thank you all for being so attentive and great audience. I hope I was not too confusing on this. It seemed more straightforward when I was preparing it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
the cal.org, CalABLE.org is the place to go. They have all kinds of just real plain language, direct information.
MaryEllen, I had a question.
Yes.
If the child does not get SSI but only has IHSS and Medi-Cal, does that make any of a difference if they don't have SSI?
No.
Okay.
No, as
So
long
it's
as they
just
have
having
a
to prove the
disability.
disability. Okay.
Yeah, they wouldn't be getting IHSS if they didn't have a disability.
Okay.
So.
and you said, just to clarify, it would be the SSI that would be discontinued after reaching 100, correct? 100,000.
Yes. Yes. The
that's
check
information.
stops. Your eligibility continues. So when the account drops below 100,000, the checks start up again.
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. You don't have to go through the whole eligibility process a second time.
Yeah, but it's definitely great that that you can save up to 100,000 and not as a lot of people are doing it right now, like just making sure that they don't exceed the 2,000 limit.
Right. I mean, 2,000 is, it's better than nothing, but for people that are working and really do want to save up for a home or a car or, dental work, I mean, that can exceed $2,000. It gives you that opportunity. So it's nice. Oops. Sorry.
Rosalia asked if the 100 is if the savings are for the child or the parents. Obviously, they're for the child.
Yes, they are.
So if you have multiple accounts for multiple children, then it would apply just for that child.
Yes, if you have if you have multiple kids with a disability, you open an account for each one of them.
Yes. It's their account. They own it.
And remember, it's a great thing that you can share the information on the account, so family members, employers, friends, and just anyone can put some money to your son's account.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that employers can do that.
Yes.
So if they're employed at a location that matches whatever their contribution is, the employer can also do that towards their retirement. So yeah, that's a great thing to remember.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
And on the portal, they provide you like with an option. I don't know if they revamped it or something, but they were supposed to like give you the option to share a link for people that you want to request contributions. So it's similar like if you did like a very personal GoFundMe.
Oh, yeah.
You send them the link and they directly, they don't have to give you their bank information or anything. You just give them the link and they make the contribution directly.
Well, that's really nice because, there comes a point when your birthday and Christmas, you really don't need anything, but someone would want to do something. They could now contribute to that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a great idea.
Definitely, that a replacement iPad and a Chromebook, applications, educational applications, AAC devices, anything related to the disability can be paid tax-free from the account.
Yeah, what a nice feeling. I mean, it's tough. So yeah, savings is great. And it gives, you can start when your son or daughter's a child.
Yeah.
They can start seeing their own allowance or whatever grow. It makes employment a lot more meaningful to all of us when we get a paycheck. So, our kids with disabilities are no different. So yeah, start encouraging earning early on, early and often.
Definitely.
So I apologize, James, I can't get into my the different emails I've been sending out while this screen is up because I just have my little book here, but I will send anything that I think is pertinent.
No problem. And it's not needed like immediately.
Okay.
You can send that in the morning, and I'll forward that out as soon as I get through it.
All right.
For those of you that that are planning to attend tomorrow's meeting with San Diego Regional Center, that'll be at 2:00. Themo, we already have the link up, correct, on Facebook?
It's already on the event, and it's already shared.
Yeah.
Oh, is that with Carlos?
Yes, that's with Carlos.
Carlos
and Mark Klaus.
Mark Klaus from
Home of Guiding Hands.
Yeah, it was too bad. They were supposed to have their board meeting out there in April. So I guess, is this in lieu of their board meeting?
No, this was a special request for myself.
Great.
I did a little question and answer for a lot of parents because there's, as you can see, there's Mark and San Diego Regional have been bombarding me also with a bunch of emails. And a lot of that, is getting forwarded out to parents, but just like I'm sure a lot of parents have been overwhelmed, especially with everything the state is sending out as far as directives are concerned, directives this, directives that, and changing directives, service providers and everything else. So this I just asked them to host a meeting for us, be our guest speakers and get it straight from the director of San Diego Regional Center, Mark.
Oh, that's an excellent idea.
And
yeah, you might want to ask him about the, families can now hire people to do personal assistance services, and the person doesn't have to go through the fingerprinting or background check. I know in other parts of the state, a lot of people are utilizing that to hire someone to come in and work with their kid on their school stuff. Now, we all know that regional center is the payer of last resort, and if the schools should be doing this, they're going to say they won't pay for it. But in some other areas, people are able to prove that the schools, in fact, are not able to do the level of service and support that they typically do. Say your child has a one-to-one aid, you might be able to use the personal assistance services for that. So you might want to ask them about that. It was for personal assistance, supported employment, and I believe independent living. So if your service provider or agency can't offer you services, you now have more flexibility in hiring someone of your choosing.
And that's totally separate from the self-determination program,
Yes. Exactly. It has nothing to do with self-determination. I'll send you that directive from DDS tonight, James, so you'll have the paper in front of you.
Perfect. I appreciate
Okay.
it.
Sure.
And I misspoke. Mark Kloss is president CEO of
Home of Guiding Hands.
Home and Guiding Hands, and Carlos Flores is director of San Diego Regional Center. So yeah, I hope a lot of you can attend that meeting. That's going to be a lot of good and direct information.
Yeah.
That they'll be able to explain to you what the state is doing in regards to resources that are provided by your service providers that are directed through San Diego Regional Center. So I hope many of you can participate. I hope many of you share the word. That meeting will be at 2 o'clock. The same thing, we'll record it with our magician demo at the helm, and we'll be providing that everywhere we can as an outlet. So if you're not able to attend, don't worry, you won't miss it, and we'll try to make sure that we can get any questions that you may have that aren't covered in the meeting tomorrow, in the webinar tomorrow. We'll get them forwarded over, just like whatever questions that weren't answered today with MaryEllen. Definitely get them over to her via email, or if somebody else that you know watches this video later, email MaryEllen if you have any particular questions in regards to CalABLE or some of the other resources that State Council does. At this time, does anybody else have any more questions?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys. I'll see you soon.
Yes, we definitely will see you soon. Well,
in Imperial.
we missed having you not come down for this, but we definitely enjoyed the information that you provided today, MaryEllen.
Oh, I'm glad I could help.
As always, great. Yes, it would have been great to see you in person. You're always a joy to see. So,
thank you. You guys take care, and I'm going to dig up that directive to send to you, James.
No problem. But seeing your puppy was equally as well.
Oh, thank you. Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Bye,
Thank you for
Thank
attending.
you.
We'll see you guys tomorrow. Have a great evening.
Yes. Thank you, Socorro.
Thanks.